Welcome to your weekly program, BelAhdan, the show that brings Arab Film Festival to your living room. As you know, last week we have the 8th Arab Film Festival, and we have about 20 different movies from different countries. And we had here Mohannad, the creator of the festival. We'll talk to him. And today we're going to cover the festival itself. We went and we saw the feature film In Search of Oil and Sand, which is a story of the story, the making of a film by a royal family during King Farouk about themselves. It's a very interesting movie, and we had a chance to talk to the people after the film to get their feeling and reaction to the film. And it's a very interesting, the diversity of view of those audience. It was a great audience there, but how people took the film that really represent for the first time a view of the loser. Usually the people who write history are the people who, the winner, the people who win write history. But this is history written by the people who lost, the people who were kicked out of Egypt in 1952 by the Free Officer Revolution. So interesting about how you tell a story as somebody who lost the battle. And is he trying to humanize the royal family, which has really been demonized for the last 6 years in Egypt and elsewhere, and the way he handled the narrative and narration of the movie was very fascinating, very interesting. So we'll give you that, and we'll have the reaction of the goer of Film Festival of the movie In Search of Oil and Land. And we'll come back after we see that reaction. So don't go away. Assalamu alaikum, and God bless you all.
In May 1952, Princess Faiza and her husband Bülent Raouf decided to make, with their friends, a movie. What they were not aware of was the fact that they and their position in Egypt was very soon to be subject to a coup d'etat, which would essentially change all their lives forever.
The film Oil and Sand is significant because it was made by a group of royal family members, royalists, let's call them, during the reign of King Farouk.
What do you think of the film?
Well, it was an interesting documentary about, from a point of view of the royal family. Usually you hear about it from, the revolutionary side, and me coming from the Palestinian descent, obviously, Jamal Abdel Nasser and his at the time of the inception of the revolution and support for Palestine and the fight against Israel.
Which also try to humanize him and present him as in a different light, in a different view.
That Hassan is there on the right. And I think this is a garage right here.
That he had mixed emotions. He loved Egypt so much, and yet he was not happy about what happened to his father and his family. So it's mixed emotions.
Family and the kingdom and all of these parties from the French and the Italian, the Greek, and there was other side of the Egypt where they're just like suffering.
The remaining living royalists of King Farouk's era, probably most of them have died, many of them have died off. Their descendants, I don't think, would manage to reclaim an Egypt that existed in the time of their parents and their grandparents. One would argue that the era of the monarchy is bygone.
There are things that we're all humans, and that we all have the same, apprehensions in life, and so it was nice to see that.
Privileged.
They were privileged. Like when I saw King Farouk's collection of treasuries, I was a little bit upset because I felt like it was things that belong to the Egyptian people.
Whoever wins gets to rewrite the history books and tell it from their side.
But this guy's lost.
Well, exactly. But that was interesting to get this perspective. And it's not one that you typically get.
I just felt pity for them, especially the woman, the princess, the one surviving. I felt sad for her.
It humanized them, but again, the viewers are intelligent enough to know that there was also kind of a biased view, like from the princess's point of view. She was saying, you know, they could not run a country. I mean, come on, they took on an already damaged country.
More than anything else, not the way that they mixed both the current time, the person reflecting back on his memories, finding the memoirs of others, and then the old films. So it kind of brought it all together in a whole package instead of just one person's perspective.
She has a film here in Arab Film Festival, and she just saw the In Search of Oil and Sand.
Yeah,
very interesting movie. This is I don't know if historical movie or a family movie or. So tell us from a technical perspective what genre that is and how you tell a story like this.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to the making of a film as a story in itself. You know, to me it was really interesting how he sort of stumbled upon this footage, and then that in turn he stumbled upon this bigger story, and then put it all into a film for all of us. So yeah.
In my opinion, I think they only showed one side of the Egyptian back then. They didn't really show the whole thing because Egypt wasn't really about the royal family.
Present themselves as victims?
There was a little bit of victimization.
Can you relate to that?
I couldn't, but of course I didn't grow up as a rich boy in Damascus.
Mubarak was just another, it seemed, lavish royal who was out of touch with society, and now it's a regime who may not know what they're doing as well. So it just seems that even in 2013, we can't quite figure out what to do with the country.
I think it's almost impossible to be fully objective because every person telling the story has their own perspective, their own agenda in their own time. So it's difficult to go back and tell a story in the period in which it happened. You always interpret it based on...
It's very hard to be sympathetic with a royal family, with that class of people. Did they succeed to humanize themselves? And did that very...
I think it just made them seem... I don't think it overly humanized them or oversynthesized them. If anything, it just showed them that they were just real people.
It's fascinating because of the serendipity of the making of the film that's discussed in the film. So, In Search of Oil and Sand discusses, among other things, a film called Oil and Sand.
We're looking for things, sweetheart. Hello? We're looking for things.
Decision, and that's why I appreciated that. It just gave me the respect to kind of listen and then make my own opinion.
On a political side, I have a whole different perspective on it, but just because of growing in the Middle East and what Abdel Nasser meant to people and what it
you grew up where?
In Damascus, in Syria. So and the whole history behind King Farouk and what it meant to Egypt to have him removed as a monarchy is a whole different perspective to it.
From Cairo come these first authentic pictures of the bloodless coup by which they...
I think that as a contributor to that effort of revising or repossessing history, I think that this film is quite a good entry.
There exists in that, I'm not really sure, what that means, in the bigger picture, but
that's how he ended the movie.
Yeah, well, it felt like just a snippet of their lives, so it was really hard to get a grasp on
the narrative.
Yeah.
That's the archive.
Or removal of an Arab regime. They go off on holiday, come back to Egypt a couple of weeks later, and a revolution has occurred. The 1952 Free Officer
And I think
Revolution.
that's the most powerful thing about film, is that it is a way to constantly revisit our history, to relive it again, you know, in a very visceral way. You know, you can read about history, but really, when you sit in front of a film like this, you really absorb it a lot quicker, I think. And it's, you know.
On the movie itself, I thought it really was a personal story, more than a historical event that may be analyzed by a historian in university. But I felt like I was kind of looking into somebody telling about his own life, about their biography.
I think you're right in the sense that this guy comes from a family who actually ended up in the losing party of the 52 coup d'etat in Egypt. But it's interesting how he narrates it, because it's a narration that he's trying to show the politics of the political narration of the post-1952.
Fascinating because it comments about how film played a role in culture as well.
There was a fascination with the royalties, and you see it in England, and you see it in, even to some extent, with certain families in the U.S. So the Arab world is not immune from that, and there is this fascination with the rich and famous, and what was their life like.
Bülent, who was a director, knew who these people were, so he cast the man whom they believed was the British MI5 spy in Cairo to be a spy in their movie. And the man that identified as an American intelligence officer, well, they made him into the American agent in their movie.
And he obviously kind of gives the image that he's given a very neutral and objective documentary about this period.
Was he throughout, as far as you can say, was he neutral? Was he objective?
Well, he's neutral from his position because he really did actually end up, you can say, being the loser of that coup itself. So, in a sense, it worked against him.
By how he ended the movie when he say, "I'm not trying to do anything. I'm not trying to make a political statement. I just want people to know we existed."
Right. Well, I mean, I think King Farouk and the whole family has been vilified in Egypt for the last 50 years, right? And so I think this idea that they're human beings that have their own interests and their own story to tell, to me, that was humanizing to the whole persona.
We realized that he was, spying on us or anything.
The Americans don't just betray these people, but they betray their own principles.
Because he made the Nasser period look like it was just a totalitarian state that was not good for the people. And I think the Farouk period was much more worse for the Egyptian peasant and for the Falahi.
Because what comes after is totalitarianism.
So, the film delivers, I think, on a number of levels, and that's why, it had such a strong draw. That's why I think why we both...
So in a sense, you're right, yes. Continuation. Right, the Sadat Mubarak period are kind of like the King Farouk period to me. Yeah.
There's a lot of differences, as a director and as a story writer, especially your first time, you're really directing and writing from what you know. And so when you grow up in an Arab American family, you have more of an insight in terms of portrayals of Arab Americans on the screen. So yeah, I think that it's very important that we continue to tell our own story.
There is a ratio. The number of calling for prayer in a Muslim country by non-Arab. What's the deal about calling for prayer? Is that a technical?
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good observation and a really good point. It might be like the go-to tactic or gimmick or device that the filmmaker chooses because this is what represents, I don't know, Arab culture to maybe a non-Arab or something.
welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this. It's very interesting reaction. And as you know, I have developed a new theory to find out if the director of a film made about Arabs or an Arab country or a Muslim country, was the director an Arab or a non-Arab, or is he Muslim or non-Arab? Here is the theory, and you take it from there. I don't have a lot of evidence, but it is a theory. The theory is, if the film was made by a non-Arab, a non-Muslim, about a Muslim country, you're going to see a lot of column for prayers. You have about 10 columns for prayer. Every 5 minutes, there is a column for prayer. If the film was made by a Muslim, about a Muslim country, you have about 1 column for prayer. Now, I asked one of the director, what is about column for prayer for non-Muslim director? Why there is 5? Every 5 minutes there's a call of prayer. I mean, there are only 5 columns of prayer according to the last time I checked, and there is only 5 prayers a day. Every call is about 3 minutes. It's about 15, 20 minutes column of prayer. So those directors, you have the rest of the day to shoot your film. You can wait for 3-5 minutes, but that's a theory. But anyway, now we have a film that came in the International Film Festival, which another section where non-Arabs makes movies about Arabs, or non-Muslim makes movie about Muslim country. And this when you find a lot of calling for praise in that festival. So enjoy that film, and we'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum, and God bless you all.
نحن גדלנו במנטליות ישראלית, בתחום של ישראל. למדנו את המנטליות של ישראל. כאילו הדם שלהם זורם בגוף שלנו. אז היו מחבלים, היו עושים בלגן פה, פצצה שמה, תיק שמה, ככה היו עושים. כשאני הייתי מגלה דבר, הייתי הולך ישר מדווח. בדיוק בזמן שהם נכנסו, אח שלי הזה נרצח. חטפו אותו מתחת לבית, וירו בו 2 יריות בראש. אחרי כמה ימים שרפו את הבית שלו. זה אומר כאילו שהם מתחילים לנקום ותת לנו לצאת מהמקום. היי! זה נשמעות כאילו שאנחנו סייענים, אנחנו בוגדים, אנחנו זה. אז אמרתי לאשתי, תשמעי, אני עוזב את המקום. אני נוסע לתל אביב. בגלל הכבוד משפחה, מהכבוד משפחה היא לא רוצה. התקשרתי לסוויסה. אמרתי לו, הילדים שלי במצב לא טוב שם. אחד הדברים שהבן שלי היה מסתובב מאנשים שם, שהם שייכים לרשות. ויוצאים בלילה, יוצאים פה, יוצאים שם. ורוצים שהילד ימשוך אותי, באיזשהו דרך. החלטתי להביא אותם, אפילו לא, אם ירצו פה או לא ירצו פה, התקשרתי לסוויסה. אני רוצה להביא אותם. הוא אומר לי, תן לי לבדוק את העניין הזה. אמרתי, אני לא בודק שום עניין, אני מביא אותם. איך תביאו? אמרתי, אני אביא אותם.
מחזו את זה מולי להרבה אנשים. שיתפו פעולה פה. אנשים שם תופסים אותם, תופסים את הילדים שלהם, אף אחד לא מכבד אותם. אנחנו רואים את הבן אדם אחד קשור בעמוד, יורים בו, אבנים גם צורקים עליו על הפנים עד שהוא מת.
ולקחתי על האחריות עצמי, הלכתי, הבאתי אוטו, הבאתי אותם לפה. ונשארו מאז עד היום. 7 שנים כבר פה כמעט. הנה, סופיאן. סופיאן. شو الأخبار يابا؟
حاجات لي قلت لها وانا ابوي اللي قلت لها رسول ضغط عليه قلت له خبطت رقم طبعا تخبط رقم.
كيف الوضع عندك؟
اكلت بدن انا.
أكلت بدن؟ من مين؟
الطويل.
شو بتحكي؟ الأستاذ عادل؟ طب بصدر يا أخي شو الدعوة؟ زي والدك اعتبره.
يا محمد يابا.
جارك سالم. يلا مع السلامة يابا.
يلا باي.
باي.
זאת החברה שלי. פיליפינית שעכשיו. מתי שבאתי מחברון לפה, לא הייתי ככה בכלל. לא הייתי מסתכל על הבחורה. הייתי רואה את הבחורה, הראש שלי ברצפה. בסוף התרגלתי, מה לעשות. אז אחר כך התחלתי מבחורה לבחורה וזה. כבר חצי הבחורות של תל אביב והחבר שלהם. ואחרי שנעצרתי וזה, גם הרגשתי מאוד לא טוב. פעם אחד כלל את אמא שלי והתחיל לעשות כמה שטויות ולהריב ולא יודע מה וזה ולהגיד לי המניאק. עליי הוא כלל כמה שהוא רוצה שתקתי. הוא הגיע עד אמא שלי, הייתי חייב להרביץ.
هون بعرف المنطقة اللي احنا فيها نبي شانان وشبيرة عشان إبراهيم والجناهد بس. قولوا لنا وقت ما كان واحد فينا يختفي امي تعرفونه وتروح تجيبه لو في الليل. هون الواحد منا بغيب امي بتعرفش وين هو ولا مع مين.
ناركوماني.
המצב שאנחנו מתי שהיינו, אני והאחים שלי ואימא שלי יוצאים מהבית, יוצאים בפחד. אין תעודתיות. תופסים אותנו עכשיו, עושים לנו משהו.
שתהיה זמין.
כמעט כל יום תופסים אותי. אני הולך רגיל. אבל באים אליי לבד. כי אין מה לעשות, כל הערבי נראה. מה הפרצוף שלו?
ראיתי את המשטרה לקחים אותו במכונית, אז עליתי למעלה בשביל לשאול אותם מה קרה.
נראה לי שמו עין עליו. זה כבר פעם שלישית. פעם ראשונה גם כן זרקו אותו במחסום שמה. והנה הפעם השנייה גם כן איך שהוא ירד מהבית. תפסו אותו פה בגינה, הייתה לו פגישה עם חברה שלו. איך שהוא יורד אומרים לו אתה מושם בגנבת קנוע.
نفس الجندي اللي مسكني المرة ديك يوم الأحد مسكني كمان مرة. לא בולי, עוד פעם חזרת? אתה רוצה שאני אבוא איתך לשטחים? או לתחנה? אני מעדיף את אבו כביר ולא רוצה ללכת לשטחים.